The first time Leora stepped onto Earth, she felt a strange mix of excitement and doubt. The air was heavy but warm, the light from the human sun softer than the radiant glare of her own world. Her eyes, bright silver like liquid metal, adjusted slowly as she looked around. Cars rushed by, people talked, laughed, and argued in a dozen different languages. Everything was loud, chaotic, alive. Leora was an alien princess from the planet Vereen, a place of endless order and logic. Every emotion, every action there was controlled by reason. There was no hunger, no sickness, no war, only knowledge and duty. She had come to Earth as part of the Intergalactic Cultural Exchange Program, a diplomatic effort to understand the species that humans proudly called themselves the most emotional life form in the galaxy. To Leora, that sounded ridiculous. Emotion was weakness. It clouded judgment and destroyed peace. Yet her council believed that studying human emotion could unlock hidden strength, and so she agreed to live among them for 6 months. When she reached her new home, in a small city apartment, she was met by her assigned human companion. His name was Ethan Miller. He wasn't tall or particularly strong, but his smile was gentle. He looked nervous when he opened the door, brushing his messy brown hair aside. "You must be Leora, right? Welcome to Earth. Or, welcome to my apartment, I guess." Leora tilted her head slightly, studying him the way one might examine a curious new life form. "Yes, I am Leora of House Vereen. I will be your cohabitation partner for 6 Earth months. You will assist in my study of human lifestyle and emotion." Ethan chuckled, unsure if she was joking. "Well, I've never had an alien roommate before, but sure, come in. Just watch your step, the floor creaks sometimes." The apartment was small, filled with things Leora didn't understand. Books stacked unevenly, tiny lights strung across walls, and a strange machine that made a hissing sound and smelled of roasted beans. She looked at everything with scientific curiosity, scanning each object with her wrist device. "Coffee maker," Ethan explained, noticing her interest. "It makes the best thing in the world." "Caffeine," Leora muttered, reading the data on her scanner. "Mild stimulant, addictive, limited nutritional value. And you call this the best thing in the world?" Ethan laughed, pouring a cup. "Wait until you taste it." Leora accepted the cup hesitantly. The dark liquid steamed like alien fog. She took a small sip and immediately made a face. "This is bitter." "You'll get used to it," he said with a grin. It was the first time she saw that humans did things that weren't logical but emotional. Drinking bitter liquid to feel awake. Decorating rooms with lights for no purpose. Keeping small green plants even though they served no nutritional function. To her it was strange. To Ethan it was normal. Over the next few days, Leora began her observations. She noted how Ethan always woke up late but never forgot to water his plants. She noticed how he smiled at strangers and talked to his reflection when he thought no one was watching. He seemed to live by feelings rather than plans, and yet, his life had a kind of beauty her world never had. She couldn't understand why humans did so many illogical things but still found happiness. They cried at movies, sang songs that made them sad, and cared for people they knew might leave them one day. On Vereen, that would be considered foolish. But here it was called living. At night, Leora sat by the window, writing her daily report. Her glowing tablet recorded her voice. Human behavior remains inconsistent. Their emotions guide their actions instead of logic. Yet despite this weakness, there is harmony. Perhaps this is why they have survived so long. "I do not yet understand." Ethan passed by behind her, yawning. "Still studying me?" He teased softly. "Yes," she replied without turning. "You are very inefficient." He laughed, sitting down beside her. "Maybe, but that's what makes us human. We're messy, we make mistakes, but we try again anyway." Leora looked at him, really looked, for the first time. His tired eyes still carried warmth. His hands were rough from work, yet steady. There was something about him, something she couldn't classify in her reports. When Ethan fell asleep on the couch later, she covered him with a blanket. Not because it was logical, but because it felt right. And for the first time in her life, Leora realized that understanding humanity might not just be about studying them. It might be about feeling what they feel. She looked out the window again, watching the city glow like 1,000 stars below. Earth was loud, strange, and emotional, but somewhere deep inside her a quiet voice whispered, "Maybe that's what makes it beautiful." Days passed, and Earth began to change Leora in ways she could not explain. The noise that once annoyed her now felt like life's heartbeat. The chaos she once feared now seemed beautiful. She still took notes every day for her research, but her questions were no longer cold and scientific. They were personal. She found herself watching Ethan more closely than her instruments. He laughed too easily, worried too often, and dreamed too much. He would stare at the stars through his window some nights, a faraway look in his eyes as if he carried a secret inside him. One evening, while they were having dinner, Leora suddenly asked, "Why do humans chase dreams they may never reach? Why try when you know you can fail?" Ethan looked surprised. He placed his fork down, thinking for a moment. "Because the trying is what makes life worth living," he said simply. "That makes no sense," she argued softly. "Effort should lead to results. If the result is uncertain, it is wasteful." Ethan chuckled gently. "You sound like a scientist." "I am," she replied seriously. "On my world, emotion is considered distraction. Logic is everything. We never cry, we never hope. We only act with reason." Ethan leaned back, smiling sadly. "Then maybe reason isn't everything. Sometimes you have to feel something to really live." His words lingered in her mind long after dinner ended. That night, Leora couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer beneath a thin mist of rain. Drops hit the glass like tiny beats of a heart. She whispered to herself, "To feel, to live," and didn't understand why those words made her chest tighten. The next morning, Leora followed Ethan on his daily routine. He went to work at a small repair shop downtown. She watched how he greeted every customer with kindness, how he smiled even when tired, how he helped an old man fix his radio for free. Later, she asked him, "Why did you not charge that human credits for the repair?" Ethan shrugged. "He reminded me of my grandfather. Sometimes helping someone feels better than earning money." Leora frowned. "But you lose profit." "Yeah," he said with a laugh, "but I gain peace." "Peace is an emotional illusion," she muttered. Ethan smiled. "Maybe, but it's a good illusion." That answer confused her more than any equation ever had. Humans seemed to build their lives on things that couldn't be measured. Kindness, hope, love. She couldn't calculate any of those, yet she saw their power in every small act Ethan did. That evening, Leora found Ethan sitting on the balcony, his guitar resting on his knees. The sunset painted his face golden red. He began to play a slow, gentle tune, a sound filled with something she couldn't describe. "What is this?" she asked quietly. "It's a song," he said. "It's called Yesterday's Sky. I wrote it a long time ago." "It sounds sad," she said, her voice soft. "It is," Ethan admitted, "but it helps me remember someone I lost." "Then why remember?" she asked. "Wouldn't it be easier to forget?" He looked at her, eyes glistening in the fading light. "Because forgetting would mean losing them twice." The words struck her deeper than she expected. On her planet, memory was stored in data files, perfectly preserved but never felt. She realized humans carried their memories in their hearts, fragile but alive. As Ethan continued to play, she watched his fingers move gently over the strings. His music wasn't just sound, it was emotion given form. For the first time, Leora felt warmth spreading in her chest that wasn't from the air. Later that night, when Ethan went to sleep, Leora recorded her report again. But her tone was different now, softer, uncertain. "Humans are driven by emotions I cannot fully define. They create beauty from pain, strength from sorrow. They smile even when their hearts break. This is illogical yet strangely powerful. I am beginning to feel something I cannot classify." She stopped the recorder and looked at her reflection in the window. Her silver eyes seemed less cold now. She touched her chest lightly, feeling the rhythm of her twin hearts. One beat steady, the other strange and fast. She whispered, "What is this feeling, Ethan?" But there was no answer, only the distant hum of Earth's heartbeat outside her window. And deep inside her, something unfamiliar began to bloom. Curiosity mixed with emotion, logic tangled with warmth. For the first time in her long life, Leora wasn't just studying a species, she was becoming a part of it. Leora had lived with Ethan for almost 2 months now, and every day she discovered something new about being human. She noticed how humans felt emotion so deeply that it shaped everything they did, the way they spoke, the way they looked at the world, even the way they breathed. On Vereen, her home planet, emotions were studied like equations. controlled, suppressed. But here on Earth, emotions were like the wind and wild and unpredictable, yet somehow essential for life to exist. Ethan didn't realize it, but he was her greatest lesson. He was patient with her questions, laughed at her confusion, and shared things she never expected. He taught her to cook, to taste food, to appreciate music, and to enjoy little things like morning sunlight or the smell of rain. One day, it rained heavily outside. The sky was gray and the air smelled fresh and alive. Leora stood by the window, watching raindrops fall like liquid glass. She had read about rain in her studies, but she had never felt it. Humans, she noticed, often went out in the rain, even when it served no logical purpose. Ethan appeared behind her holding 2 cups of steaming coffee. "You ever felt rain before?" he asked. "No," she said quietly. "On my planet, the weather is controlled, no storms. No rain." Ethan smiled and opened the door to the balcony. "Then come on." "Time for your first," Leora hesitated. "But there is no reason to." He grabbed her hand gently, pulling her out into the downpour. "You don't need a reason for everything, Leora. Sometimes you just live." The rain hit her skin like thousands of tiny kisses. Cold at first, but refreshing. Her silver hair clung to her face, her clothes soaked instantly. Ethan laughed, spinning in the rain like a carefree child, and for a moment Leora felt something strange. Laughter bubbling up inside her. She laughed too. Not a polite sound, not a calculated tone, but a real laugh, wild, pure, alive. It echoed through the street below, mixed with the thunder and the rain. For the first time, Leora wasn't observing humanity. She was feeling it. When they finally went back inside, both dripping wet, Ethan handed her a towel, grinning. "Told you it was worth it," she smiled softly, her eyes brighter than before. It was beautiful. That night, Leora couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his hand in hers, the glow of his eyes in the storm. She had never experienced such closeness with anyone, not even her own people. She sat at her desk writing her report, but her voice trembled slightly as she spoke into her recorder. "I felt something today. Not just curiosity or interest, and something more. When I laughed, I felt light. When I looked at Ethan, I felt peace. If emotions are weaknesses, why do they make me feel strong?" She stopped the recording, unable to continue. Her heart, or rather both of them, beat unevenly in her chest. She pressed her palm against it, whispering to herself, "This is not logical." The next morning, Ethan found her sitting on the balcony again, staring at the sunrise. The golden light reflected in her eyes. "You didn't sleep?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "I was thinking." "About what?" "About humans," she said slowly. "You live short lives, yet you fill them with so much feeling. On Vereen, we live for hundreds of years, but we feel nothing. Perhaps you are richer than us, Ethan." He smiled softly. "Maybe it's not about how long we live. Maybe it's about what we do with the time we have." His words struck her deeply. She turned to him. "You speak as if your time is limited." Ethan looked away, his eyes dark for a moment. "Everyone's is, Leora." There was a quiet sadness in his voice, something she didn't understand yet, but she felt it. It wrapped around her like invisible weight. She reached out and touched his hand gently. "Then I will make sure your time is not wasted." He looked at her in surprise, then smiled. "Deal." From that day onward, their bond began to change. Leora no longer saw Ethan as just a subject of study. She began to see him as something far more important, her guide, her friend, maybe even her reason to stay. The more she learned about humans, the more she saw beauty in their flaws. Their laughter, their sadness, their endless hope, all of it seemed to carry a power she could not explain. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Leora whispered to herself, perhaps being human is not about logic. Perhaps it is about the heart. And though she didn't fully understand what her own heart was doing, she knew one thing for certain: something inside her had changed forever. Leora had grown comfortable in her life with Ethan. The once strange apartment now felt like home. She no longer studied every object around her. She simply lived among them. She cooked, she laughed, she listened to music, and she learned what it meant to care. But something about Ethan had changed. He smiled the same way, told his silly jokes, and still made coffee every morning. Yet his laughter sometimes ended in a quiet cough. His energy seemed to fade faster than before. At first, Leora thought humans were just fragile. But as days passed, her worry deepened. One evening, while they were watching an old human movie together, Ethan coughed again. Harder this time. The sound was deep, painful. A red stain appeared on the tissue he tried to hide. Leora's sharp eyes noticed. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you are unwell." He tried to smile. "Just a cold." "Don't worry," but she wasn't convinced. She had studied human biology. She knew what blood from the lungs meant. That night, when he was asleep, she scanned him silently with her small wrist device. The results appeared in glowing text. Lung tissue damage. Cell decay. Chronic respiratory failure. Her throat tightened. It wasn't just a cold. It was something far worse. The next morning, she confronted him. "You lied," she said softly. Ethan froze, realizing she knew. "Leora," he began, but she interrupted. "Your lungs are failing. You are dying." He sighed and sat down slowly, as if the weight of her words pressed down on him. "Yeah," he whispered. "I was diagnosed 3 years ago. The doctor said I had maybe 5 years if I was lucky." Leora's voice trembled. "And you did not tell me? Why hide this?" He looked at her gently. "Because I didn't want to be treated like I was already gone. I didn't want your pity. I just wanted to live like everyone else." She stared at him, confused and angry and sad all at once. "But you should fight it. On my planet, we would heal you. We would not just wait for death." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes, Leora, fighting isn't about winning. It's about choosing how you live, not how you die." His words struck her deeply. She couldn't understand how he could speak so calmly about something so final. To her, death was a problem to solve, not to accept. That night, Leora sat alone on the balcony, her mind heavy with questions. The stars above looked cold, distant, just like home. She whispered, "Why do humans accept pain so easily? Why do they smile when everything ends?" She didn't know when Ethan came out behind her. His voice was soft. "Because we don't want to waste the time we have left being afraid." She turned to him, eyes glistening. "You are not afraid?" He smiled sadly. "I am, but I've made peace with it." "You speak of peace," she said bitterly, "but how can there be peace in death?" He looked at the stars with tired eyes. "Maybe peace isn't in death, Leora. Maybe it's in knowing you lived the way you wanted, loving people, making memories even if it hurts." She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but her voice failed. She saw how the wind brushed against his face, how his eyes still shone with life despite his weakness. For the first time, she realized something painful. Humans were strong not because they avoided death, but because they faced it with open hearts. Later that night, when Ethan had gone to sleep, Leora recorded her report again, but this time her voice broke halfway through. "Subject Ethan Miller is terminally ill. His body is failing, yet his spirit remains unshaken. He chooses to live even as he dies. I cannot understand this strength. It defies all logic. My heart aches." She stopped the recorder and pressed her hand to her chest. Her twin hearts beat unevenly. She could feel something heavy inside her. Sorrow. Real raw sorrow. She whispered into the quiet room. "Ethan, I do not want you to go." But he was already asleep, breathing softly, unaware that the alien princess beside him had just learned what it truly meant to feel. After that night, everything changed for Leora. The small apartment, once filled with laughter and curiosity, now carried a quiet sadness that she could feel in every corner. Ethan still smiled, still tried to act normal, but Leora could see the truth in his trembling hands and tired eyes. He was fading. At first, she tried to find a cure. She sent messages to her world, asking for permission to use advanced healing technology, but her planet's council refused. "Interference in human biology is forbidden," they replied coldly. "Observe but do not change." Leora read that message again and again until her vision blurred with tears. For the first time in her life, she disobeyed an order. She didn't care about rules anymore. She cared about him. Ethan noticed her stress one morning when she burned breakfast, something she never did. "Hey," he said gently, coughing between words, "you okay?" "No," she admitted, voice shaking. "I am not okay. I am angry. I am scared. I am sad." Ethan smiled weakly. "Welcome to being human." His joke made her laugh through her tears. "You humans are strange. You laugh in pain. That's how we survive," he said softly. If you can still laugh, it means you're still fighting. From that day, Leora began taking care of him in every way she could. She cooked his meals, helped him walk when his legs grew weak, and sat beside him when the coughing wouldn't stop. She even read his favorite books aloud at night. Sometimes he would close his eyes, listening to her voice, smiling faintly. "You make the words sound softer," he would whisper. One evening, as she tucked a blanket around him, he asked, "Do you regret coming here?" Leora looked at him, her glowing silver eyes filled with emotion. "No, I regret not understanding you sooner." "Understanding what?" he asked. "That being human is not about weakness," she said quietly. "It is about strength, and strength to feel pain, to love, to hope." He smiled. "You sound like you're finally getting it." She shook her head gently. "No, I'm only beginning to feel it." Days turned into weeks. Ethan grew weaker, but Leora stayed by his side. She never left him, not even for a moment. She learned how to smile even when her hearts were breaking. She learned that caring for someone meant putting their comfort before her own. One night, a storm hit the city. Rain slammed against the windows. Thunder growled in the distance. Ethan woke up, struggling to breathe. Leora rushed to his side, holding his trembling hand. "I'm okay," he whispered, though clearly he wasn't. She shook her head, tears falling freely now. "No, you are not. You cannot keep saying that." He looked at her with tired eyes but smiled anyway. "It's just what humans do. We say we're okay. So the people we care about don't worry." She gripped his hand tightly. "But I do worry. I cannot stop it." Ethan reached out and gently touched her face. "Then don't stop. Worry, cry, feel. That's what makes you alive, Leora." His hand was warm but weak. She covered it with hers, trying to hold on to that warmth as if it could keep him here. When he finally drifted to sleep again, Leora sat beside him, staring at his peaceful face. Her twin hearts ached so deeply she thought they might break. She whispered to herself, "I thought love was only a chemical reaction. But it is not. It is a force, invisible but powerful. It hurts, yet I cannot let it go." Her wrist device blinked softly with another message from her home planet. She ignored it. Her mission didn't matter anymore. Ethan mattered. As the storm quieted outside, she leaned closer, brushing his hair gently away from his forehead. "You once said that laughing means fighting," she whispered. "Then I will fight too, Ethan. I will fight to keep your light alive." And in that moment, she made a silent promise that even if his body failed, she would never let his story fade. In the days that followed, Leora stopped writing research reports. Instead, she began keeping a small journal, a human thing Ethan had once given her. Each night she wrote about what she felt, what she learned, and what she remembered. Her last entry of that week said simply, "Today, he smiled at me." And that was enough to make the universe feel less lonely. She closed the book, placed it beside him, and sat quietly as the moonlight filled the room. Her mission had begun with science, but it had turned into something far greater. Now she wasn't just studying humanity. She was living it. Winter arrived quietly. The air grew colder and sunlight no longer reached the apartment the way it used to. Leora often sat beside Ethan's bed, wrapping him in blankets and holding his hand when his body shook from the chill. His once steady voice had grown weak, but he still smiled every morning. "Another day," he would whisper, "another sunrise to be thankful for." Leora couldn't understand how someone so close to death could still find reasons to smile. Her science told her that when the body weakens, the mind breaks. But Ethan proved her science wrong. His spirit remained strong, even as his lungs failed him. She had stopped sending reports to her planet weeks ago. Her leaders wouldn't understand what she had learned here. They wouldn't understand what love truly meant. She had begun to believe that maybe humanity carried something the rest of the universe didn't. Something invisible but real. One morning, Leora woke to silence. Too much silence. The small hum of Ethan's breathing machine was gone. She rushed to his room, panic rising like fire in her chest. He was sitting by the window watching the sunrise. His skin looked pale, his eyes tired, but there was peace in his face. "You scared me," Leora said, voice trembling. "The monitor," it was silent. He smiled faintly. "I turned it off. I wanted to see the sun, without the sound of machines." She sat beside him, her throat tight. "You shouldn't move without me." He looked at her, his gaze soft but steady. "Leora, I don't have much time left. I just wanted to feel the morning one more time." Her twin hearts pounded painfully. "Do not say that." "I have to," he whispered. "We both know it." Tears filled her eyes. "You humans, you accept death as if it's a friend." Ethan reached for her hand. "It's not a friend," he said softly. "It's just part of the journey. You can't run from it. You can only live before it comes." Leora shook her head. "But it's not fair. You taught me what it means to live, and now you leave?" He smiled sadly. "That's the human way, Leora. We build, we love, we lose. But even when we're gone, what we gave stays behind." Her tears fell freely now, glowing faintly as they hit her skin. "Then what did you give me, Ethan?" He squeezed her hand weakly. "You'll know when the time comes." That evening, Ethan fell asleep while she was reading to him. The book slipped from his hand. The sound of his breathing grew lighter and lighter until it stopped. Leora froze. The air felt heavy. Her body refused to move. She placed her ear near his chest. Silence. "No," she whispered. "Ethan, wake up." She shook him gently, then harder. "Please, do not leave me." "You promised another sunrise," but he didn't move. Her heart shattered. She screamed, not in anger, but in pure grief. The sound echoed through the room, through her body, through everything she believed in. She held him close, her tears falling like rain. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. She didn't know. Finally, she lifted her wrist scanner, unable to stop herself from running one last scan. But what she saw made her freeze. At the exact moment his heart stopped, the scanner recorded an unknown burst of energy. Bright, radiant, immeasurable. It wasn't electrical, chemical, or biological. It was something else, something alive. The energy lasted only a few seconds before fading into nothing. But Leora felt it, not through the machine but through her own body. A warmth spread through her chest, soft and bright, like a heartbeat not her own. She touched her heart and whispered, "What is this?" Her device blinked rapidly, showing words she had never seen before. Non-physical energy detected. Unknown source. She didn't need more data. She knew what it was. It was Ethan. His spirit. His essence. His love. The thing humans carried that her kind could never measure or understand. The force that made them laugh, hope, and love even as they faced death. It wasn't weakness. It was power. The most beautiful kind of power. That night, Leora sat beside Ethan's still body, her fingers tracing the lines of his face. "You were right," she whispered softly. "I understand now. The human spark, it doesn't end. It just moves on." Outside, the sky was full of stars, billions of them shining like souls. She looked up and smiled through her tears. "You are part of them now, Ethan, and I will carry your light wherever I go." And in that moment, the alien princess finally understood the greatest human truth of all. Even in death, love never dies. Weeks passed since Ethan's last sunrise. The apartment felt empty, quiet, and strangely still. Every corner held memories. The coffee maker he loved, the guitar he strummed, the books he read aloud. Leora walked through the space slowly, touching each object as if she could absorb a part of him. Her twin heart still ached, but she carried something no machine could measure. His spark. The human essence she had witnessed at the very moment life left him. It was radiant, intangible, eternal. She understood now that humans were fragile, yes, but their fragility made their strength extraordinary. When the time came for Leora to return to Vereen, she packed her belongings with care. She did not take Ethan's books nor his guitar. Those were not hers to claim. Instead, she carried the lessons he had given her, the warmth of laughter, the courage to love even when it hurts, the beauty of hope in the face of the inevitable. On the day of departure, she stood outside the apartment one last time. The sun was rising slowly, painting the city in shades of gold and pink. She whispered, "Thank you, Ethan, for teaching me what it means to live." Her communicator beeped. A message from her council awaited. They wanted her reports, her data, her conclusions. But she no longer wrote as a scientist observing humans. She wrote as one who had lived among them, one who had felt the depth of their hearts. Humans are not weak because they feel. They are strong because they feel deeply and still move forward. They love knowing they will lose. They hope knowing they may fail. They live fully, briefly, beautifully. She sent the message knowing her leaders might not understand. It did not matter. She had understood. That was enough. During the long journey back to Vereen, Leora often gazed out the window at distant stars. She thought of Ethan smiling in the sunlight, laughing in the rain, and lying peacefully by the window on his last day. His memory was vivid, as if he were still alive inside her heart. For the first time, she realized that humans had something her species had never known, an eternal spark. It was the ability to leave a piece of themselves behind, to touch others in ways that transcended time and space. She closed her eyes and felt it, warmth spreading through her chest. The echo of his last touch, his final words. "Even when I'm gone, what we gave stays behind." He was right. She had felt it, and now she would carry it forever. Back on Vereen, she was greeted with ceremony and curiosity. Fellow aliens asked questions about human life, expecting the usual observations, facts, and reports. Leora smiled quietly. She could have given them science, but instead she told them stories. She spoke of kindness, of laughter, of hope. She described a man who lived fully even as he faced death, who loved and taught without knowing it, who left a spark that could not be measured. Her peers listened, intrigued but puzzled. Emotions were still a mystery to them, but they began to see something different. Strength not in logic, but in vulnerability. Leora's final words in her address resonated across the hall. Humans are not to be studied merely as data. They are teachers. They are reminders that life is precious because it is fleeting, and love is powerful because it cannot be contained. That night, she went to her private chamber and placed a small crystal on her desk, a glowing sphere that symbolized life on Vereen. It shimmered softly, and inside it she imagined Ethan smiling, watching the sunrise, laughing in the rain. She whispered, "Your spark lives on, Ethan. In me, in everyone who learns your story. You are infinite." For the first time in centuries, Leora allowed herself to cry, not as a scientist, not as a princess, but as a being who had learned what it truly meant to be alive. And in that quiet room, under the twin moons of her world, she made a silent promise. "I will teach humanity to all who wish to learn. I will carry your light, Ethan, always." Her journey had begun as a mission of observation, but it ended as a testament to the extraordinary resilience of human hearts. She had come to study them, but they had taught her instead. And in that lesson, Leora understood the greatest truth of all. Love does not end. Life does not truly leave. Humanity's spark burns forever, fragile, brilliant, eternal.